Well, actually, I think one of the things that happened was 1972, after the 4-year term, and we obviously won again, but George West Sr. came on the board, first black since Reconstruction. And still, again, it was a citywide election, and the majority was white. But they voted to put him in because he was such a good man.
Yeah.
So the times had changed drastically as we went along, and we were all having to learn how to work in this new system. And we just had some good people that worked with each other, thank goodness.
Yeah. What looking back over your 20 years, what are some of your proudest accomplishments?
Number one, staying alive in office.
And you're joking, but sort of serious.
Well, actually, I lived at 914 State Street, which is actually now called the Mayor's House. It's owned by Present Mayor Dan Gibson, and is a bed and breakfast. Before he went into office, he actually named it because I had lived there. But I didn't have a place to park. I just parked kind of on the street. I could go over the sidewalk and be next to the house. But back in those days, J.T. Robinson was the chief of police, and I give him an awful lot of credit. In my opinion, J.T. knew the Cluckers, he knew all of them, and he knew the blacks, and he was able, and knew Charles Evers, they were friends. He was able to kind of keep things under control too. But I didn't know this until later, but at nighttime, and J.T. couldn't trust all his police officers because some of them were in the Klan. He would come at nighttime and put a piece of Scotch tape underneath my hood, and then the next morning he'd go by and check it, make sure that it hadn't been popped and that somebody had planted a bomb there.
Oh, my goodness.
So, it was kind of scary. So
and you didn't know that until later?
Not till later.
Yeah.
I guess I wouldn't have been so brave. But anyhow, I think one of the greatest things that we were able to accomplish, again, was peace within the race. I think another thing that I'm very proud of course, was a street program that we actually went through the grounds of some of the antebellum homes and opened up streets through Natchez, Main Street being one of them, George F. West Boulevard and others. But we also started trying to get particularly the minorities in decent housing. So we started a program of condemning houses, and you could fix them up or they were going to come down. And that led to some Section 8 housing that we did, but we didn't put them on top of each other. We didn't make them 2 stories. They were spread out just like it'd be a normal home. But when we came up with the idea of condemning houses or getting them up to shape, as I said earlier, my father was dead, but my mother actually owned some black property in what we call Wall Street Alley. And outside commodes, outside privies, as you'd call them, I guess, hardly any running water, typical of what they did. And in order to make it work, I knew the first thing people were going to say if we condemned a house was, "What about your mother's?" Mm-hmm. So Kenneth Graves had taken over in the housing department there, and I think he thought I was a typical politician speaking out of both sides of my mouth. When I told him to condemn my mother's property first, he wouldn't go do it. So finally I had to call him in the office, and I said, "Do you go down there and put red signs on every one of her houses?" I said, "Kenneth, I've talked to her. She knows about it. Now go do it." And he did, and boy, after that, he went wild. He got a bunch of them. And in fact, we got a couple of historic houses. And based on that, the newspaper, which was taken over by the Boones at that time, we got the preservation ordinance came about because of that. So you can't just go in and condemn houses that have some historical value. But we lost a few of them because of our enthusiasm to do that. But I think putting people into housing and giving them a decent place to live and that had a whole lot to do with what I felt was probably that race relations, housing, it's hard to pinpoint any one thing. Of course, the disappointment to me was that we didn't have as much industry coming in as I'd liked. And about that time, Armstrong was beginning to go down. We had the 50th anniversary of Armstrong, a big event. And about 2 weeks later, they were getting ready to sell the building, sell the whole thing. But that would probably been my biggest disappointment. But again, I think just being able to work together with people and trying to do the right thing. Of course, the problem is the longer you stay in office, the more decisions you make, the more people you're going to make mad.
Yeah.
Because every time you make a decision, somebody's happy but somebody's mad at you.
Yeah.
And so I enjoyed my 20 years. I still miss the people, even with 34 years later, I still miss them. But, I'm glad I'm not around with social media.
Yeah.
It's bad enough back then because, you don't have to prove anything. All you have to do is accuse somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
From regular family checkups to sedation dentistry, orthodontics and cosmetic dentistry, experience dental care the way it was meant to be. Right around the corner from a name you can trust, Miss Lou Family Dentistry.
Come see us for all your handmade and fine jewelry needs here at 415 Main Street in Natchez, Mississippi. You can also find us on the web at riseandshinestudio.com. Always remember to smile big, shine bright, and enjoy the journey.
Hey guys, we just wanted to take a minute to recognize our awesome partners who help make this show possible. Trinity Medical Center, Miss Lou Family Dentistry, Sabrina Dore Agency, Hampton Inn and Suites Natchez, Hicks Chicks, Go Mart and On The Go Deli, Rise and Shine Studio, Concordia Bank and Trust, member FDIC, Ellard Physical Therapy, and the Brandon Iron Steakhouse. So let these businesses know how much you appreciate them helping us spread positivity throughout the Miss Lou. And remember, tell them Miss Lou Champions sent you. Another guest champion that we had in was our mutual buddy Mark Brockway, who did the documentary Mississippi Madam, the story of Nellie Jackson, and he actually mentioned you during our interview, and he said a quote from you. But can we talk a little bit about, I don't want to say your relationship, but your friendship or whatever it was with Nellie Jackson? Can you tell us a little bit about how that?
Yeah, that of course
was
when I was in office. Some of the far right religious people would say, "You're going to close her up?" I said, "She was in operation before I was born. No, I'm not going to close her up." And of course, I knew about it. And Nellie made her fortune in World War II when Camp Van Dorn down at Centerville had 40,000 men down there going to war, knowing they're probably going to get killed. But because I knew all about Nellie Jackson. But when I took office, the doctor was Tom Gandy, Dr. Tom Gandy, and he was my doctor too. And she was concerned because she was smart enough to try to stay on the right side of whoever was in office, of course, and she liked Mr. Nasser. But Dr. Gandy told her, said, "You won't have any trouble out of Tony." He said, he grew up here, he knows about it, he's not going to try to close you down or anything. And I never did. And then my former wife had a restaurant here called the Sidetrack in the old depot down on the bluff that they're trying to do something with now. And I happened to be down there one night with a group that was actually here with Southern Living magazine. And she told me, she said, "There's a reporter up here who wants to talk to you." And I said, "Well, if you don't mind, send him a drink and I'll go over and talk to him when I get through down here." So I went in and sat down next to him. And he said, "Mayor Byrne, I want to be up front with you." He said, "I'm in here doing a story on Nellie Jackson." He said, "What do you think about it?" Well, he said, first of all, he said, do you know she exists? And I said, certainly I know she exists. Why? He said, well, what do you think about it? And I said, well, I think it ought to be legalized. Where do you want to go from there? So it kind of took the starch out of him. But he did a expose and went down under the hill to the saloon and got comments from different people down there. And Super Bowl Sunday, I would go out to my friend's house, Joe Fortunato, who played 13 years with the Chicago Bears and at Mississippi State. And he got the Times-Picayune out of New Orleans. And it wasn't on the front page, but it was on the back page of the front section, a picture of Nellie Jackson's house, and it had in there, Nellie Jackson's the best little blank blank in Mississippi. And of course, throughout there, they quoted me extensively, and you know, we all had a big laugh about it and didn't pay any attention to it. Well, about 2 weeks later, at one of the board meetings, there was a whole bunch of people there that I didn't know. Well, not a bunch, it was about 6 or 8. I didn't know who they were, and we allowed people to talk, you know, just anybody want to say anything. And they got up and wanted to pray over me, and because of Nellie Jackson. And finally they were going on, and finally I looked around and realized, I said, I don't know any of them. And so somebody told me, said they're from Vidalia. And so there's a bunch of, why they wanted to come over here and get on me, because, I guess because of religion, I don't know. So I finally just said thank you and just shut them down. But the ironic thing, Ronnie, was that same week I had to make a speech to the Ministerial Alliance here in Natchez. And thank goodness that our local priest was the chairman of it. But when I went there, they kind of joked about it. They were pretty broad-minded in most cases. In fact, one of the local Methodist ministers at the time said, I'm not sure that I know this exists. He said, I think we ought to get a committee together and go investigate it. And he said, I'd like to be chairman. So it was kind of fun. But one of the ironic stories about Nellie was I had a bed and breakfast, again called at the Byrne. And on the weekends, and this was on a Saturday, whatever I wore the night before, wherever we went, I'd put it on real quick, go downstairs and say hello to the guests and chat with them at breakfast, and then later go back up and change clothes and so forth. But I'd been somewhere, and by that time Nellie Jackson had her T-shirts out. And it says, follow me to Nellie's. And of course I had one. Nellie had given me. And so I had it on. And the guy at the end of the table, young guy, and said, Mayor Byrne, I want to ask you about that T-shirt. And I looked around, there were no children, so I told him the whole story about Nellie Jackson. Well, he started dying laughing. He said, my girlfriend at the end of the table said, her name's Nellie. He said, I've got to have one of those shirts. So I said, okay, we'll go, I'll call her, you can go. So I called Nellie, and she said, send him on up. So we did. Well, my son-in-law, Adolph Jonitis, was here from Fort Wayne, Indiana, but he's from Grand Rapids. And he said, Tony, I'd like to get one of those T-shirts, too, to take to, we've got a priest that's retiring. He said, I'd like to play a joke on him. And I said, okay. So he said, can we go up there? So I called Nellie and tell him I'm coming. We got up there. A young couple was backing out as we got there. So we parked, on the side of Nellie's and went in. There's a young girl, pretty girl there, everything hanging out. And Adolph's younger than I am, and he's got this accent from being from the north. And she asked him, said, where are you from? He said, Grand Rapids. She said, look, I'll be up in that part of the country in November. Like, let me give you my card so you can call me. So anyhow, we got out of there and went back to the Byrne. There had been 4 ladies, actually 5, sitting at the table, a mother, grandmother, and granddaughter. And they had broken down out front. So I offered to help, which I couldn't help because I'm not very good at mechanics. But anyhow, they said they were waiting for the husband to come from Baton Rouge. He could work on the Mercedes that they had. And I said, well, why don't you ladies go back in the Byrne and just sit down till he gets here? And they said, well, we've checked out. And I said, it doesn't make any difference, just go back in. They said, I'll tell you what we'd rather do. And I said, what's that? They said, we'd rather go to Nellie Jackson's and get some T-shirts. so I called Nellie and tell her we're coming.
Coming back.
And of course, I walked in, and I had 3 women with me. And Nellie looked at me and she said, Mayor Byrne, I never have heard of bringing you on. But anyhow, they got the T-shirts and got out. And ironically, Nellie Jackson's 85th birthday, her husband, and she was married to a white man towards the end, her husband called me and was putting a little BS on me, I know, but they said, you're out of office now. Nellie's kind of depressed because you're not there, and wondered if you would mind taking her out to eat on her birthday. I said, no, I'll be glad to. Well, my former wife said, no, we're going to have her over here at the Byrne, because we served bed and breakfast, but also nighttime dinners and lunches and so forth. And so we got a group of friends together, Dr. Gandy and his wife, Joan Gandy, who's now a Presbyterian minister, and also Buzz Harper and Dr. Salvo, 4 or 5, maybe 10 people total. And Nellie came, and we were downstairs, and anyhow, doorbell had rung, and the lady we had working with us, Kay McNeil. At the time, we were trying to sell the Byrne, actually, to Dr. Randy Tillman and his wife. And anyhow, she was at the door, because we were having a party downstairs. And Ann Tillman was at the door and had her cousin and wanted to show her through the Byrne. So Kay asked me about it, and I said, yeah, but just kind of steer her away from down here a little bit, you know. So she didn't get to steer her down. So Kay came in to me and said, Ann Tillman wants to talk to you. And I'm thinking, oh, God, there goes the sale of the Byrne. You know, I'm down here with Nellie Jackson and everything. So I walk outside, and Ann asked me, she said, Tony, is that Nellie Jackson in there? And I said, yeah, it is, Ann. She said, do you mind if I come in? I've never met her. So I said, come on in. So that's the way it was felt about Nellie Jackson in Natchez. And, you know, Nellie would, in those days, the nuns couldn't drive. And Nellie would drive the nuns around wherever they wanted to go, particularly nuns at Holy Family, which is basically the Black Catholic Church. But and Nellie in the civil rights days bailed a lot of them out. She also was very instrumental in helping the FBI, because there's a guy named Billy Bob Williams who was an FBI agent here at the time, among others. But they would go up there like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, because you know, the Cluckers didn't mind going with the black women when they couldn't be seen, type thing. And they would go up there, because she had white women too. But anyhow, Billy Bob would go up there and get information about what was happening with the Klan, and because they, you know, they brag on everything they had done, type thing. So she was, and when she died, I went to the funeral at St. Mary. Father O'Connor did this service, and some of the parishioners jumped on him about doing the service for Nellie Jackson, and he blistered them in his sermon the next song about being hypocrites. And of course, Father O'Connor has a classic comment in Mark's video about the Black Book.
Yeah.
But it was, you know, it was just...
She's a fascinating
Well, it was just an
person.
institution that was here that everybody just kind of accepted. And Natchez is a river town. We had gambling right here on Main Street, you know, 2 doors, 3 doors down. Slot machines, crap tables, poker games going on. But it was a river town. Actually, making it legal hurt the city, because we got a black market tax. Back in the days when whiskey was illegal, we had package stores around that would deliver to your house and charge it to you and bring you ice and Cokes and 7-Ups in those days, no Sprites, and charge it to you. And then when legalized whiskey came in, it kind of did away with some of that. But Natchez is a river town, and it was wide open. So I grew up just thinking that's what you were supposed to do. The thing I missed when I went to Mississippi State, being dry, was no beer signs. So you had to drive 7 miles to get a beer.
Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. She's a fascinating person for sure. I wish that I would have had an opportunity to meet her.
Well, she was, like I say, very well known. She loved baseball, and she loves the St. Louis Cardinals particularly. She would get on the train and go to the World Series, go to ball games up there. And she was, like I say, fascinating to be around. And I was happy to call her a friend because she was such an institution.
Yeah, you hear that a lot. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who say the same thing.
And a lot of people still wanting to write books on it. Some of the Garden Club ladies have brought people by my office to talk to them about Nellie Jackson. And, here's the Garden Club people talking about Nellie just like she's there. So what about it?
Welcome to your new hospital, Trinity Medical. Located in Faraday, Trinity Medical is the only acute care facility in the Tri-Parish area. Here you will find an active pursuit of holistic health, a strong, honest group of clinicians, and a consciousness of others that transcends the 80,000 square feet committed to you and your loved ones. Trinity Medical. People you know, caring for people you love.
If you like what we're doing here at Miss Lou Champion Spotlight, make sure to like, follow, share on Facebook and Instagram, and visit our website, MissLouChampions.com. It costs you nothing, and it helps us to continue to shine the spotlight on awesome people right here in our community.
See you guys.
Growing up, my parents always encouraged me to do what's right, even if it wasn't easy. I'd always hear my mother's voice say, "Do the right thing." That stuck with me. Every day, just do the right thing. The rest takes care of itself.
At Shelter Insurance, we believe in doing the right thing for our customers and our communities.
For auto, home, life, or business insurance, see Shelter Agent Sabrina Doré.
Why don't you tell us, I saw a video that Dustin and the city did about Tripod, the
City's Kitty.
The city's kitty. Why don't you tell us quickly about how that came to be?
Well, actually, I was coming back from California because we sought the movie industry. In fact, the last 11 years we were in office, we had 13 movies here. And so I was coming back from California, and I'm sure it was USA Today, and I was reading about the headlines of the city has adopted a kitty. And I looked and they said Natchez, and I said, "Oh, I don't know what that is." And so when I got back, the cat had just shown up at City Hall and had 3 legs. The front paw was missing, and Bill Fields, who was a city engineer, was looking for some new equipment, and so seeing the 3-legged cat, he just named it Tripod. And by the time I got back, of course, he was enhanced in City Hall with the ladies. They weren't going to let Tripod get out of there. And so we were feeding, they were feeding Tripod everything, chicken bones, whatever it might, and found out it didn't have any teeth.
Oh my goodness.
So we started a city's kitty to get Tripod some dentures. And of course, the talk shows around the country, primarily radio in those days, started calling in, and of course we carried on like, yeah, we're getting Tripod some dentures. Well, eventually, Tripod would go on Sunday, would go over to First Presbyterian Church and go to church over there and then come back. One of the ladies decided we weren't taking good enough care of Tripod, so they catnapped her. We thought catnapped her, kidnapped her, whatever you want to call it. And so we were all looking for Tripod. And finally, when the lady realized that we wanted Tripod back, she brought Tripod back to City Hall. Well, somewhere along the line, Channel 2 in Baton Rouge heard about it, well, primarily, I guess, through Leo Honeycutt, who was down there and is a friend of ours, and actually wrote the book on Edwin Edwards, the former governor of Louisiana. And they found out it, so they decided to do what they called PM Magazine in those days. So they came and did a segment on tripod, and PM Magazine was a fill-in for if a TV station ran 10 minutes behind or they needed a 10-minute filler, they would put in something like this. Well, we could always tell when tripods film had been shown around the country because we started getting money and catnip and gifts from tripod. And when the boats would come in on the river, a tripod would be in my window, in Mayor Gibson's window now, and be in that window, and people would come by and they would see tripod. They didn't remember the city, but they remembered the cat. And they would come in and want to see tripod. So he got so popular that we had to we took a picture of tripod, and then on the back we put 3 paw prints. So people would come in and usually make a donation to help feed tripod, which we didn't need, but we took. And anyhow, we'd give them a picture. So tripod actually served a full 4-year term before he died. And Dave Pace, who has Natchez Monument, in that days it was Brookhaven Monument, donated a tombstone to tripod, showing a picture of tripod with his paw off. And we buried him in front of City Hall. And recently Mayor Gibson wanted to know about tripod because they were all of the impression that it was an outside cat. And they were kind of shocked when they found out that tripod actually lived in City Hall. And one of the meetings we had, Hall Wilson, who I had mentioned earlier, was on the board, but he was allergic to cats. And tripod had missed his litter box, I guess, or something. So Hall went upstairs and tried to make a motion to remove tripod from City Hall. Well, the motion died because of a lack of a second. So Al Granning, who was on the board, made a motion to remove Mr. Wilson from City Hall. And we tell the story, it was a 3-3 vote, and I broke the tie to keep Hall there. And he doesn't like for me to tell this because he was a villain. Actually, we had a picture when PM Magazine showed it on TV. There's a picture of tripod looking at the picture of Hall Wilson on there and turning his head. I don't like that man.
The feeling was mutual, huh?
Yeah, but actually we had an ice storm one time, and Hall was living downtown at the time, and we couldn't get to City Hall, and he actually came over and fed tripod. He said he didn't like for me to tell that because he likes being the villain. But he served.
Didn't want to ruin his reputation.
But like I say, tripod got a 4-year term in.
Yeah.
It's a cute story.
What an interesting story.
A bunch of hard shell politicians being there, letting this cat take over City Hall.
Oh, goodness. Let's talk about just a couple of the ways that you've seen Natchez change over the years since you grew up to now. What are some ways, for better or worse, that you've seen Natchez evolve?
Well, I would always say better because I love Natchez and highly prejudiced towards it. But growing up, where you kind of walked everywhere, there was no malls, no business outside of downtown. Everything was congested right here in this area in Franklin Street, Commerce. So that obviously has changed. The boycott certainly crippled and just about destroyed downtown. It's made a pretty good comeback, which is a good thing. I grew up with all the big industries here, and Natchez actually was a union town, and it did a great job for the people that were in the union, but hampered us trying to get new industry to move in because the northern manufacturers didn't want to fool with unions. But Natchez was a union town, and we just accepted that. Of course, it's not now because we don't have the big industries. Hopefully with Mayor Gibson's Natchez Renewal program. We'll get some more in here. But that has drastically changed. Obviously, the education system has changed because it was segregated when I was growing up, white and black schools. That they said the black schools were separate but equal. Well, that was not true at all because they got the whites left over books. There's no black history in a lot of it. That has changed drastically now. So civil rights has changed Natchez completely. One of the things that has changed, I guess, I was fortunate enough to stay there 20 years. I had five terms. And we have 7 former living mayors now.
Right now?
Right now, seven former living mayors, starting with me, thank goodness. But only one of them, Butch Brown, has served more than one consecutive term. All of them have been one-termers. I hope maybe Mayor Gibson can change that. Butch Brown served 2 consecutive terms, then left for 8 years, I guess, and then came back and served another one. And then Butch's health got bad because he probably would have served another term or 2. But that has certainly changed. Tourism has changed a lot, where the antebellum homes had, at pilgrimage time, it was packed with people. And like I say, Mayor Gibson and his board are doing a good job on getting people happy again. And of course, going through COVID hurt a lot, but everybody went through that. But I think the changes that I see in the city government are going, I think, very well. I'm one of Dan Gibson's cheerleaders because I think he's doing a good job. His board is doing a good job.
I think that he's doing a great job right now, and I think that Natchez is moving in the right direction. And I see it. We're here on Main Street, and we're fortunate that we get to. I have a business next door also, a Rise and Shine, and we see tourists come in every week. These boats are coming through, and we sort of get the bird's eye view, I guess I would say, of what's happening, and things are moving in the right direction.
Well, Natchez was created as the oldest city on the Mississippi, oldest settlement, I think they want to say, on the Mississippi River. And we were established because of the river, and I think our future is going to be the river. And with all these boats coming in with packed full of people, it's ironic, and it's great to see again, because we used to just have the Delta Queen, then the Mississippi Queen came in, and now we've got about 5 or 6 boats coming in, I think, and
quite a few every week.
And we used to get an awful lot of bus tours through here going to New Orleans. Katrina kind of hurt that, but I think they're beginning to come back on that too. And so I again compliment them on going the right direction, and I'm proud to see it and happy to see it, because I'm not leaving Natchez. I love Natchez, and I'm going to stay here.
Well, tell us one more question for you before we let you out of here. What does a day in the life of Tony Byrne look like these days?
So I have retired and spend an awful time, good time with my wife now. But I play tennis about twice a week, and I have a camp on Lake St. John and try to go there. And I still try to stay active, stirring up annexation is another one. I play tennis, and we went before the school board. Henry Harris, who was a former pro out there, we went before the school board and said, since you're building a new high school, we'd like to see you put some tennis courts out there. So I'm sticking my nose into certain places and creating some controversy here and there.
Well,
life is still very good for me. We travel a little bit. I have children, and Annette does too. But hers lives. One of them lives here in Natchez. Actually married to my cousin Bill Byrne. So I introduced Bill as my cousin, stepson-in-law, and all the above. And then my 2 children, and 3 children, because I have a stepdaughter, Pat Joninus, that lives here, and 2 children. Kevin, my son, is in Austin, Texas, who worked for the Susan and for the Dell Foundation, Susan and Michael Dell Foundation. But he's just taken a new position with the Subways Foundation in Florida. And my daughter Christy teaches and has her PhD and teaches at Sanford in Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
So, we visit around a little bit, but today I stay active with Dan Gibson a little bit here and there. But
I know he enjoys that.
Yeah, but just thankful to be here. I have a birthday coming up in May, and I'll be 86. Like most everybody else, I didn't expect to live this long. My daddy died at 53, so I didn't expect to live. It was kind of like Mickey Mantle said, if known I was going to live this long, I'd taken better care of myself. But I think I'm in good shape, and like I say, just try to stay active and stay whatever Mayor Gibson's asked me to do, I'll try to do.
Yeah.
But,
well, look, I'm not going to keep you all day, but we appreciate you coming in. It's been an honor to sit down with you and hear these stories, and I want to thank everybody watching this. I hope that everybody found it as interesting as I did. We want to thank our partners for making these interviews possible. We want to thank everybody for watching this, all of our viewers, and God bless everybody out there. And as always, have a champion day.